consider freedom.
Well, yeah.
Okay. If we could just for a moment, I just want to do a sound check with Alana. Good to go?
Hey, yeah, good on my end. You hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Alana. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
All right, you're good?
Sound check, good morning.
Yeah, no chipmunk, you're good? All right. So good morning, everyone. We are going to get started with our first meeting for the Nelson Salmo EFG Regional Park Commission for 2026. And so the very first topic on the agenda is the election of the chair. And the directors are familiar, but for the public, I will be calling for nominations 3 times. I will ask the person that is nominated if they are willing to stand. If there are more than one nomination, then we will do a secret ballot to select. So if the directors, please just be off mute and let me so that you can just jump in with the nominations. So calling for nomination the first time.
Director Lockwood.
So Director Lockwood.
I'd like to nominate Cheryl. Director Graham, sorry.
Director Graham, do you accept the nomination? No. Sorry, you just better say it, Cheryl, because it is being recorded.
No, I can't accept that nomination, but thank you, Director Lockwood.
Calling for nominations a second time.
Commissioner Page.
I don't know if you heard that, but Director Newell nominated Commissioner Page. Yes, everybody did. Calling for nominations a third and final time.
Commissioner Page accept. I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
Verbally say so.
Yes, sorry, that was very presumptuous. It was very presumptuous of me. Yes, yes. Calling for nominations third and final time. Hearing none, Director Page, congratulations on being elected chair for 2026.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
So, thanks everybody for that. I won't bore you with a speech. First order of business, though, we do have the Mayor of Nelson, Janice Morrison. If we could,
I'd like to move that the mayor to give a repeatable before. Second.
okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Seeing majority. Thank you for joining us today, Janice. And then that takes us into our traditional land acknowledgement that we acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And we have our minutes. Are there any omissions or updates or comments from the minutes? Seeing none, then those are received. We have no delegations today, and so we'll take us straight into our presentation about the Pagan Beach Regional Park Improvement Plan from Mark. Mark online?
Yes, Mark is online.
Mark is online. Mark, do you want to give us an update on this item?
Yeah, through the chair, just note that at the last commission meeting, staff committed to sending the very draft initial site development. It's kind of hypothetical drawings out to the commission members just for internal comment, and it did take us longer than we expected. We were missing important details regarding the existing site conditions, so including like the location of the road, where the extent of the beach is, where the existing parking is. So we did go back to our consultant and ask them to provide a more comprehensive package, and so I anticipate that is coming in this week. Carolyn and our project manager has been very helpful. She's coordinating that side of the project, but we'll get the drawing package to you for comment. So I did send an email out earlier this week just letting you know that, and just anticipating that we're in the very early investigative stages for considering what's possible at Tag and Beach, but we do intend at a later date once we've received internal comments and some key stakeholder comments from Ministry of Transportation and property owners such as Tech. Once we have that work complete, then we are committed to going to the public to really finding out what the public would like to see at the park. But this is sort of a baseline starting point for us to just gather information together so that when we go to the public, we're not wasting anyone's time, and we have some real information that the public can make some decisions and provide comments on. So any questions would be appreciated. I can't seem to hear anything with talking.
Yeah, nothing from the board.
Sorry, Director Graham, I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you, and thanks for the update. So through the chair to Mark, should we be expecting some changes to the parking design? That's what I'm hoping, because I was really hoping for a one way in, one way out, or something along those lines. I know there's a residence there that needs to be able to also get access, but I was really thought that both of the designs that we got last time were really kind of overly complicated, and I was hoping for something a little bit more simpler. So are we anticipating any fundamental change in the design of the parking lot?
At this point, we're still considering this the first set of drawings for you to look at. But definitely that's the point of sending it out internally, is just like, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? If we want to go in a different direction, as you described, maybe it's a circulation consideration, then we can have that discussion with internally and with the directors. And we can take that information to MOTT to get maybe a little bit more information about where they want to be, where our stakeholders want to be. So yes, we're very much still in a position to make changes. It's just, it's kind of a starting point, right? It's always tough to take the first crack at it because it might not look perfect at the very beginning, but the process takes us there.
Okay, great. Lockwood?
Thank you. Through the chair, first off, I would just like to say thanks for leaving Salmo out of this. I guess we're not going to be a part of it, but the report doesn't mention that it's coming, that we're part of it. I think Mark, you just forgot Salmo. But my real question is when we go out to the public, are we going to be asking the question? So everybody's going to say, yes, we want this, but are we going to ask the question, are you willing to pay so much in taxation for these improvements? And how much are we willing to pay? That is, I know there's two questions there, but I really would like to know if we're actually going to ask people how much they were willing to pay, or even, how much they, or when they will, you know what I'm saying, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So we would have a Class D cost estimate available for consideration. So costing of the concepts. And when we go to the public, we typically have an understanding of external funding that might be available. So in this case, we have community works funding. So we'd be communicating that out to the public, and then we'd be showing any shortfall we have in terms of funding for the capital improvements. So yes, full transparency on the capital project costs. And typically we do include a question once people have absorbed all that information as to what level of interest they have in paying for these types of improvements, or how they think the improvements should be funded. And we have the typical categories of like through taxation, funded by others, through donations, what have you. So like we will have that option available for people to provide their comments. Usually people choose funded by others as their favorite one, but we have to be realistic, right?
Supplemental, Chair?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. To staff, I'm just very concerned about us telling people that there's funding through Community Works, because that stuff gets always asked for many different things. I would prefer us not to tell people that, and if we get to be able to use that, then it's a bonus, because then I think we lead people in a way of, oh, well, somebody else will fund it. And that's just my only suggestion around that, is not to say that there's Community Works funding. Thank you.
Through the chair, absolutely. The most important part, and Joe's good to point this out regularly, is to have a project that's shovel ready. It's ready to go, and it would be up to the commission's decision how they want to fund that at a later date. And it could be waiting for perfect timing for a grant to come out. Maybe something changes in the world, but in terms of funding availability, but just having a project ready really helps you get in the door in terms of when those opportunities arise. So just sort of pointing that out, that it might not, everything might not look perfect at the beginning funding wise, but we have demonstrated through all of our other projects that when we have a project ready to go, the funding has come through. And it's really difficult for funders to come to the table if they don't have anything tangible to talk about. So it gets the conversation going for us.
And through the chair, Mark, do you just want to touch on, because there is a commitment of funding for TAGM? So just to make sure that we just identify that you have a commitment already through community works, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the last report identified the Community Works funding application has been made. I don't have the amount in front of me right at the moment, Joe, but I can dig that up if there's any other questions and find it for you.
I think that might be okay, Craig,
Craig, you
Yeah,
want to jump in here?
Yeah, through the chair. So we had identified, we did a financial plan amendment to take some of the budgeted amounts for TAGM in various locations and put them into a capital budget line in 2025. And that included $100,000 in funding from Community Works. I believe there was 25 and 75, and forgive me, I don't know what areas split that, but there was $100,000 for Community Works funding in the 180,000. And then we did spend some money last year on the consulting and the project management fees. Currently, the net budget is showing at 160 for 160,000 for 2026, but we'll probably have to do a bit of a reconcile on that one, because it's a little bit more than 20,000 we spent, but it is 100,000 in Community Works funding currently committed to this project.
Okay. Any further questions? Comments? And we're still going to get some drawings to get circulated, Mark? Yeah, including Salmo?
Yeah, I would like to include Salmo on my next report. Sorry, Diana, about that.
Okay, let's take us into the meat of the meeting today. It's our financial plan.
Through the chair, I will begin the conversation and ask for Craig and Carrie and Mark and Tricia if required to. I'm just going to bring it up on the screen here in just a moment.
Everyone can see that?
Sorry about the way this, shows up. So,
Make it
What-
bigger on
I can see that on the phone.
and to the bottom. Yeah, there you go.
Is that this little square that I didn't bring my magnifying glass for?
that's why I'm, putting it up. Putting out, I don't know what you're looking at in the package, but it probably is. So, the first place to start is that what you receive in your, in the package for the whole board budget on Friday. This amount is significantly different. I believe it was over 1.3 million, or maybe it was even close to 1.4 million was the requisition for the draft requisition for 2026. So, at this point in the budget process, we believe it should be around $1.186 million. So that is at the moment the draft requisition. On this piece, what we're gonna do is we'll go through each of the primary projects. So you'll see how this all breaks down across the budgets. But on the very bottom, there is a new line, couple new lines, and I just want to make sure that I explain those. So down in the transfer two, so this is in 59704, 59709, 59722. So in the past, community services, the community services fee always contained transfers to A104 and A109. It was just contained in one line, and that is 59530. And you can see that last year that was 267,601, and this year that budget line is now 0. So this just breaks out where that transfer is. So A104 is $210 and $11. So that is the transfer that pays for Carrie and the park staff, that centralized park staff. And then A109, that pays for like our general community services support. So primarily things like me and the office and those kinds of things. So that's how that breaks out. The new line is A122. Good, got all the twos in there. That is the cost for administering asset management. So at the board, last Friday, you heard that discussion. So this is the allocation to this service. Okay, and to be clear, like there were two pieces of the board, and I want to apologize. This is a little bit off topic, but Diana, just know that what I said on Friday is correct for S230. All that shows up in S230 is the administrative portion. There is no funding for the facility condition assessment in that, and there will not be facility condition assessment for that.
Can you just
So-
tell us the rest of the world what S23 or what service that is, please?
S230 is Salmo.
Thank you.
So this is just the administrative cost for asset management that's allocated to this park service. So if it's okay from this page, we'll go through each of the big project areas in the service. I think that's where more of the detailed notes are. Carrie, almost ready?
Yeah, I mean, from.
We'll call Carrie, Janice.
Sorry, through the chair, question, Joe, when you started off, you talked about, and so I, just to keep me from having to pull it up on my other computer, you said that, the requisition that was in the budget meeting on Friday was considerably more than the requisition I'm seeing here?
Correct. Yes.
And which one's the error?
No, there was no error. Everything balanced. It's just, I'll explain where the change happened. Just right now, actually.
Okay, thank you.
So this, the first piece is the overhead for OBR for the parks budget, which is just OBR 143. There's just a couple of important things here that can sometimes get confusing as we move through. So first is the investment income and interest. That $13,000 is the interest that's earned on the reserves of this park service. So there's then also an entry at the bottom that puts that into reserve, but know that that's a budget figure. It's not necessarily what goes up as an actual. The next is the surplus, and Carrie and Craig just need some there may be questions on this. So this is the early estimate on surplus, and what that means is that at this point in time, there are still, regional district is still doing accruals into the system. We do projections to try and get this as close as possible. But it may, as Craig said, there may be a consulting invoice for Tagum Beach that hasn't been processed by finance yet. And so then that would be, then we need to shift things around based upon that. So right now we're projecting 265. The primary areas are the Great Northern Trail Management Plan. So we budgeted $70,000 last year. That $70,000, that plan hasn't been started. The budget amount is still there, but that's coming forward in surplus. So that's not being taxed again. Tagum Beach, there's surplus from last year. That will be coming forward this year. And our Rosebud Lake work. And I just want to pause on this piece just for a moment. In 2024, when we acquired Rosebud Lake, we also received a $50,000 donation. That $50,000 donation came in as revenue. Unfortunately, we didn't move it straight into reserve. So it's carrying through in the surplus. But this year, you'll see that there's a capital project of $50,000 for Rosebud Lake, which is related to the dam and those pieces. That's being funded from that donation in 2024, which came through the 2024 surplus and is now coming through the 2025 surplus. And then some other areas was the Great Northern Trail. That's what GNT, if you see it in here, brushing contract. It is, that's what that relates to.
I don't want to splice semantics too much, but I know there has been conversation and we should try and grab the language of calling this a carryover as opposed to a surplus. So there's been that's been a point of confusion for the public to think that we're generating some sort of surplus, but a carryover is clearer language.
Right.
So they take back a staff.
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good thing to bring up with you at the board. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is a privilege, I guess. Sorry, through the chair, speaking to the dam. So the $50,000 is gonna be spent to, do some improvements on the dam. Are we gonna have a line considering, how the provincial government looks at dams and structures such as that, ongoing for perpetuity in terms of maintenance of this, dam on the site of Rosebud Lake? And will it be always a separate line item? I think it's really important that having now acquired this is not a one-off. This is gonna continue to have regulatory requirements far and above what might be in many other parks.
Through the chair, Carrie, I think you're in the best position.
I can answer that. Right now we're working with
Carrie, just before, Diana, Cheryl, Greg, everybody online, can you hear Carrie? Yes, okay, keep going.
Yeah, so we've been working with
If he
SRK
talked
engineering.
a little bit louder, sorry.
Maybe,
Do you wanna,
If-
do you wanna come to
If
the
he
table?
could talk a
Karen?
little bit louder because it's
he's
really
not at the
muffled.
table, so you're gonna sit at the table for a minute.
4 minutes. Yeah, so SRK Engineering, we've been working with them. And we're working with the provincial dam regulation supervisor. So really, we're getting information from them. We're almost finished our emergency manual, our different types of aspects that we need to know on what we need to do moving forward, if there's any deficiencies and all that. So that's what we're doing right now. And that's where a lot of the work has been. So once that's done, we'll have, we have to respond to the dam safety officer and what the regulations are within the province. But I think once we kind of get on this road, we have to do monitoring, but we'll know for sure what aspects of the dam are, needing anything, which at this point doesn't look like it. So it looks like it's easy for now, and those are the things moving forward. We'll follow those regulations.
So the question I heard though was to capture those activities on their own line item as we do, as we build the project.
We can, yeah, that can, right now it's in capital because the works are going to be capital when we do them. After that, we can separate that out, index a line and just have a separate line for what's being done there.
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah, so, yeah, and through the chair, so you'll see as we go down, that you'll see there's a project for Rosebud Lake. So, that is always where those expenses would be. What's important on this page in particular is the, accumulated operating surplus, so 59100. So this is the area that changed from the budget presentation on Friday. This was around 290,000, and you'll see here it's 79,760. The reason is that when we start doing budgets, we don't change from the requisition that we identified the year before until we get further along in the budget process. So after that meeting, we had reviewed the budget and said, you know what, we can reduce that amount. We're fairly confident where 2025 is coming in. So we pulled that money out. We kept the 79,600 in here. This is a complete decision of the commission. But I would wait to touch this line until we go through scenario 1 and scenario 2. Because the other important part in here is the grant line. We have been through the commission meeting in November. There's been a request to look at what we are funding for our contribution to the city of Nelson and the village of Salmo. I will get into detail on that when we get to scenario 1 and scenario 2. There was no firm direction from commission on that. So I'll explain what staff's logic for scenario 2 is when we get there, but the rest of the budget isn't impacted by that decision. So if it's okay, we'll leave that for discussion for later. The other thing that you'll notice on this piece right here is you can see what those allocations for A104 and A109 were in 2025. I put those in there just to illustrate that change. Is there any questions on this page before I move forward?
Any questions? Not seeing any. And keep going.
All right. So this is our first of the capital projects, and Carrie and Craig may just need your help on questions here, but this is a continuation. So as we know, we've been doing CLRP, stands for Cottonwood Lake Regional Park, and this is the accessibility project. When we've been working on this, Carrie, we're going back 3 years, right? 3 years. So we still have some remaining funds in the grant, so that's $40,000. And we're still doing some, you can see in the line there, we still have some project signage to do, some further landscaping and drainage and a new trail. So that will, hopefully this project will be complete this year, and then this capital project will be closed. Are there any questions on this? Thank you.
Diana, go ahead. Lockwood?
Sorry, thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering about a new trail at Cottonwood Lake. Is that are we actually building more trails there?
The chair, no, it's a continuation. It's the trail that we planned to do. It's been in the works for 3 years. It's just a loop trail to loop back into, so we've done part of the trail that goes along the road to get in, and it's in the new area that just loops around as the final part of the loop trail. So that was part of the original design. It's just it's been a bit lower on the project list while we're trying to get some other things done. So that's all it is.
Supplemental?
No, thank you. I just looked at last year's and didn't see a thing that said new trail, so that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Onward.
Talked about, just finished talking about this a little bit. So this is the Tagum Beach parking lot. So as per Mark, this is right now in the planning stage. As you can see, there is this dedicated funding of 100 from areas E and area F allocated to 2026. So what this does show though is, and this is not, there is additional, we have a budget of $160,000 there, but as Craig had said, we're still working on this 2025 balancing between what we expended last year and what we're expending this year.
You look like you have a question. Dennis, no? Okay, continue.
Oops, Rosebud Lake.
Chair
This
Diana,
is-
Director Lockwood had a question.
Lockwood?
Sorry, my computer is being very touchy and it's not letting me put my hand up sometimes. I just want to know that this budget is in front of us today. I'm hearing that it could still change. Am I to understand that the budget possibly, that we're going to see it before it actually goes to the board in March? Or are we thinking that once it changes today and we have the numbers, then that's going to go forward without seeing?
Yeah, so through the chair, what would happen is that, let's say that if we're looking at that capital expenditure line of 22,153, if that goes up to $30,000, so we'll just call that $8,000 for the sake of it. The budget where it says 160, we would drop it to 152. So that's how we're just gonna have to manage that piece. So it won't cause a net change. It's just that we're making sure that that budget in 2026 is reflective of what we've actually spent in 2025. So at this point in time, what we know from finance is that they've closed off accounts payable. I believe that was last Friday. And what that means is that technically any invoices that come in after last Friday won't get charged to 2025, even if they were 2025. So then that means that we have to fund it out of 2026. But every once in a while, particularly when it comes to capital projects, the auditor will put money back. It will take money that might be in 2000. Right now, we see in 2026, and then we move it back to 2025. So what we'll do is make sure that we've accounted for that in this budget, but it shouldn't change the net position of the budget. Sorry,
Okay.
but that's just where we are in January.
Well, and Lockwood, we won't meet again as this commission until the 25th of March, which is after the March board meeting. So the majority of our direction is coming from today, unless we choose to have another meeting in between there, which, you know, we all know is going to be a challenge. So we're looking for the majority of direction today.
Thank you.
and
That's
through
why I was asking.
And through the chair, just to, I was just actually, Tricia and I were just talking about this yesterday. I was just making Tricia aware that if something major, like if there's a major change in a budget, like Keith and the directors from on Nelson, on the Nelson Area E and Area F Rec Commission. Well, remember that a couple years ago, we had when we were doing the draft budget, we had a projected surplus, and then we realized it was gonna be more.
Yeah.
And at the table at that board meeting, they made an adjustment to contribute more into reserves in that year. So we will watch that. If there is something, we will let you know.
Okay, I think we're good.
Rosebud Lake. This, we talked about, so Rosebud, as Carrie mentioned, so this is that donation. We wanted to make sure this year that we got it clearly identified, so it's clearly identified, and Carrie and I have talked about a plan that if the work that's done this year is less than 50,000, Carrie knows to initiate with Craig, the possibility of moving whatever leftover donation amount is there into reserve for Rosebud Lake. So just to know that will be the plan. We want to make sure that donation, which was specifically for Rosebud Lake, is not lost. Balfour Beach and sorry, Carrie and Craig, I'm gonna need you guys to do these parts.
Going to Mark, we're going to Carrie.
Oh, sorry, did I say Mark? So I meant Craig and Carrie, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so do you want me to go through, each one?
Yeah, so we'll go to Balfour, like the ones that are up on the screen.
Yeah, so Balfour Beach, we have a employee that goes there. It's actually the same one as Sunshine Bay. And then it just actually works out, because he has to go, deliver the garbage to the garbage station and that, and so it worked out that he goes and does the cleaning, the management, the garbage, the, washroom stuff when it's there. So that's really what that is. We kind of move things down for repair and maintenance. So before, under contracted services, you'll see a lot of what we've done is we've made sure that a lot of times we had contracted service for stuff that it might not actually be, the contract doesn't look at it. So we put it down into repairs and maintenance. So there is a change in the overall budget when you look at repairs and maintenance compared to the contracted service, as they are essentially repairs and maintenance department. So the tree management, we're having lots of that all around. The our parks, obviously, the more we have with climate change and things like that, drier seasons, fires, etc., wind throw. So we do have tree management, and that's where we have to basically get a company to go in and deal with danger trees, or go in and deal with trees that we can't do because we don't have our falling pins. So, and then the dump fees are really, that just gets into the same aspect. So the outhouse rental, that's where, one time we're looking at putting in a washroom. What we found is that, due to the seasonality of it, we have the rental washrooms that we bring there, and they're cleaned weekly and they're sanitized twice a week, and then they're dumped as soon as they need to be by the truck, and it's all done through the local company here. So that's Belfort.
Diana, go ahead.
Sorry, I asked this question last year and I was told that we're looking at putting washroom there. But our outhouse rental at $17.50, we could have bought one last year and put it there and saved that. So I know it's little amounts, but little amounts add up every year. Can we look at actually buying an outhouse and putting it at her different places? And then we can also, if we put a washroom somewhere, we can move these around. So I'm just gonna ask again this year about the purchase of an outhouse.
We've heard it, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm not sure what you mean by a purchase of an outhouse. Are you talking a permanent outhouse that's there, or you mean us buying one of the? So the cost of actually transportation, cleaning, sanitizing, dumping, we don't have the capacity to take one of those and to basically have a back truck to take the waste. So that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't be able to do that, right? We don't have that. And the cost of sending someone to go do that for the small amount that are in there would be quite excessive throughout every logistic if we were to do that. Having a permanent, and we have done some preliminary work on that. The issues that we have with that is access. So being able to access it to actually get a pumper truck in there, we have to drive along the foreshore onto Crown Land, which we're not sure. We talked and unlikely we would get a permit to do that. We've looked at a biodiversion toilet, which is one that takes the solids and it actually compacts them in over time. We did part of that already. There's a lot of engineering to that. It would probably be about $70,000 for completion of installing that toilet. Again, over time, if you want to look at it for versus what we do, happy to do that, but it would be a fairly hefty cost to do that. We've gone through First Nations, and we would have to go through another full TFR on that, which would, be a little bit expensive. And then just the engineering and then the toilet. Again, my preference, to be honest, would be to eventually have a toilet there that is on site and in the actual park. But the costs are fairly high for that, but the commission provides me with that direction, I can do it.
Okay, so there's an operational component to this rental fee, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's just once, to the chair, clarification, so you're telling me for $17.50, the company that we're renting this from, comes, cleans it and empties it weekly? So that's all in this $17.50, we're not doing any maintenance there, that's all part of the contract work.
That's correct. And through the chair, the other part to that, last year, I think it was 14. I mean, it's a little, as we get into longer seasons, it will be there sooner. So didn't want to put it as it exactly was because last year it was a little bit later when we installed it. And so this way it gives us a little bit of flexibility to put it in, in May when it starts to actually get busy if it's really nice out, kind of like it was last year.
Good. Lockwood, did I see you here? You wanted to ask us a follow-up?
No, there was just a lot of stuff there that I heard that it is too much to get a pumper truck in there, but we have an outhouse there already that we're renting. So some kind of a pumper truck's getting in there to do that. I heard that it was $1,400, but to date says $301. So I'm just a little bit confused, but let's move on. Thanks.
So the clarity is simply that the $1,750 includes the pumper truck. Like the rental is the rental and the service to clean and pick up the waste. So that cost would carry into, if we had to vac our own unit, if we had our own unit, it wouldn't come with the service, so we'd still be paying the service for someone to come vac our own unit, if they'd even allow that. So we don't avoid this cost by buying one of those units. It's a small number, so I want a small answer. We have 1,600 in operating for dump fees, and we're budgeting 500. Is there just extra work that went on there this year that necessitated more dumping than we anticipate?
Yeah, so through the chair, that was originally we had a little bit of that into the dumping and then the waste management rather than the actual dumping fees that there were for that park.
Okay, so those have been moved into repairs and maintenance then? I hear you. Okay, I'm good. I think everyone else is good on this one.
Through the chair, what's important to note about Balfour, it may have been lost over time, is that it's a little bit of this landlocked park. I don't know if Mark is still on, but if you wanted questions about it, he could explain it to you. So there's an accretion that happened so there's the RDCK water supply. I'm looking at Terry. That's the right thing to say. Water supply for Balfour. And then it goes a private piece of property. That private piece of property had an accretion that then blocked any access actually to the next piece of property, which is ours. So that's why this has always been a challenge. Where we're going to put a washroom and those kinds of pieces. But I want to assure you that this park was kind of a gift from many application of many years ago. But it is actually a beautiful location, and if you do get a chance, it's well worth being a regional park. But this particular piece of it is always going to be problematic for staff to work around.
Thank you. On to Bonington.
Shoot, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Bonington, we have, our money in there, which we've, had over the years. We're still working on the xeriscape, the trees, invasives, landscaping. And that came through, it's been very successful. It also involves community engagement. So some of that is, discussing a lot of the type of, we get these questions all the time actually, is like, well, what kind of stuff should I plant here? Because I don't know, it keeps dying. So this is a really great, it's similar to Crescent Valley Beach, which we have a xeriscape garden demonstration, and it actually is really great for the community. So this is ongoing. With that, the groundskeeping, so that is our contract, with the groundskeeper, and that is a separate contract from, we have one for janitorial, and that's when it goes and cleans the washrooms, does that, and then we have a separate one that does the grounds. And so that's what that contracted services is there. And then we also have just the irrigation. That's kind of the repairs and maintenance of everything, the washroom pumping, the signage, nightlight rings, all that stuff. So that is the repairs and maintenance. And then the rest of it is the materials and fuels, tipping fees. And then contributions to community events. So that's something that we do. There is a society that, they put on a lot of really cool aspects in the summer, whether it's movies in the park or they have little fairs and things like that. So we've always kind of, had a little bit there to help when needed with that. Last year, again, there really wasn't very much in there. I know just this year they again have reached out and plan to do a lot of the similar things. Our water and hydro, that's they didn't really charge us last year for a lot of the water. There's ongoing issues in Bonington with water supply. As we get in later into there's water restrictions. Sometimes we're taking off water altogether, and other times, we can go through a whole season with no irrigation issues whatsoever. So that is if it's a full year. Previous year, that's been close to $1,000. And then that's just so with the car share we have in there, that individual, instead of paying for another vehicle for us to have, it allows them to use the car share. So that's really Bonington.
Okay, any questions on Bonington before we move to Cottonwood? Seeing none. Cottonwood.
Great, Cottonwood. So I just want to be clear too, a lot of what we did a couple of years ago, so I went to the board with CCIS, to be able to deal with our invasives in a lot of our areas. It actually cost parks a fair bit of money. And so what we've done since then, we actually have someone that can deal with those things internally to save us money. So what we've done is, we have some of the invasive costs that were in there originally in a budget that was throughout the regional district. We've broken that down now, and we have someone that is actually doing that. So it's actually a little bit less than what was paid originally when we got CCIS to do the work. So we're doing a lot of that invasives. That's throughout the regional district, not just this two or two, but Same thing, we have a contracted service, that's the janitorial garbage, removal. And then basically we just get into the regular, like our signage, trail structures, our house pumping. It's a very busy park, so I think we actually had to do it twice last year. Pumping, and you know, pumping is getting more expensive as we move along to dispose of that waste. So just to note that that is getting busier in a lot of our parks, and we're having to do that more often than we have in the past. And then we still have the loan, going on, from the purchase, and I believe that ends in 2030.
Actually, no, sorry, it's kind of,
Oh, expires in 2030.
it expires in 2030.
So, a few more years for that. So any,
Sorry, where am I seeing the cost savings of bringing the invasives internal?
well, again, it's according to what it was a few years ago in terms of throughout the regional district, it was $50-something thousand that we're having to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing that internally, and that's at all of the parts that are identified, I think, not just the regional district. And the individual that actually has been working with us, Jen Bergeron, is now, we're working with Resource Recovery, and she's actually working cross boards to work with Resource Recovery to minimize some of those for the regional district from CPS, so.
Lockwood?
Sorry,
Sorry, no worries.
thank you through the chair. I'm just trying to wrap my head around CCAS. So when we're sitting at the board, we're asked to fund CCAS, and pardon me if I don't remember what our last board meeting was and how much was funded through that. But now I'm hearing that we're not getting them to do the work, but we're still giving them so much money, and we're charging, we're getting staff to do our CCAS work, our invasive. So I'm just trying to figure out, so the public understands, because I don't understand this now, is that I thought that's why we were giving money to CCAS. So we could, if I could have an explanation, that'd be great. Thanks.
I believe we approved 15,000 to CKIS for regional strategy work. But I'm hearing that this work of the 50,000 would have been more intervention-based work. Yeah, I'm getting a nod from Mark. So what he's talking about is work that CKIS was doing to help intervene in actual pulling. The board approved at our last meeting 15,000 for CKIS for broad scope planning of the regional invasive species management plan.
Thank you.
And
Craig,
through the chair, the last of that is that it's still very valuable for them to do inventories and, you know, and I think that's part of that strategy, saying we have something over here that's really, they might identify stuff. They're still out there and they identify stuff for us. If they see it, we can react to that easier as well. So that's.
Okay, Craig,
Yep.
see your hands up too. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll just add to that, the strategy there with CCAS in the past and what they had submitted to community services, I think it was 2022 or 2023, was that we recognized that the scope of work they were delivering on, certainly doing the inventory work that they have the expertise for, was valuable, but the actual control of the invasives was something that we determined we could do more efficiently. And so we have done work with Resource Recovery Management and talked to them about their contracts. And so Kerry and his team have taken on some of that work. Certainly within our parks, we have shown that we can do it, the control measures at least, more efficiently than a contractor.
Okay, great. Thanks, Craig. Okay, see no more questions on, go ahead, Janice.
Sorry, just don't want to belabor the CCAS business to death, but through the chair, to actually Director Newell, I think was on this, were you not on the board of CCAS at one point, or? Yeah, so maybe I've got this completely wrong, and I'm glad that I've got clarity now, but I always thought that this money going to CCAS, the 15,000 or whatever it is now, wasn't like a direct for service payback. It was more the fact that they do this work and they're a nonprofit and they needed some financial assistance, and so we contribute to CKIS because we think they're doing good quality work, and some of the work they do can benefit us, but I've never thought of it as that I'm giving him $15,000 and he's giving me a report back. It's about more global work that we can then, as an organization, it would be like go to the Red Cross and ask how many blood donors there were or whatever after an emergency or something. I've never thought it was a direct back and forth contract. And then I'm still looking at you, Councilor, the Director Newell. If you could just clear up my fogginess, please.
And do you want to talk about it?
Thanks. Certainly the relationship developed in regard to the RDCK's responsibility for invasive species on the RDCK properties. And I think that when I started there was on the board, and I actually, it's a longer story than just being on the board. I was actually the RDCK board elected me to be the liaison. And so it's more as I recall, more formalizing the relationship and ensuring that we at the RD were doing our mandatory meeting our mandatory requirements, and we use CKIS to do that. There were other developments that were offered by CKIS that the board has not engaged in. And so at this point, my understanding is that they do consulting and they do actual work.
Through the chair, they also do workshops and stuff like that. So they are providing actually coming up in our employees an opportunity to do a workshop to learn about what invasives are where and high strategy areas, etc. So there is that aspect.
Yeah, I know that they do work that the public can be engaged in, so I just didn't see it as a real direct line. I mean, I think that they're an organization that needs funding support because invasive species are, a significant issue and probably another place where the provincial government is once again actually dropped the ball. I don't know how often I've said that in the last 25 years. But yeah, I just wanted some clarity around it because I think it's a little bit not quite as direct as we're maybe referring to that money as well. Thank you for all that. Sorry to have.
Yeah, just through the chair, just to note, Janice, you're right. There isn't that direct thing this year. It's that there was a direct thing, and I can't remember what year. There was a direct shift of what we were giving CKIS, and we found a more effective way of doing it.
Okay. We good? We're good.
Great Northern Trip.
Okay, so we have in there work for again invasives and then actually early and late season brushing. Most of that's done. We do things a little outside of the time frame that we have now that we have one full-time summer, we moved that one part-time employee to a full-time employee last year. So this is the first complete year that we just had moving into the next. We have a set time for our seasonal employee to come on. What we're finding now in particular in areas, as you know, we're having drier early seasons and things like that. So in some specific pointed areas, what we'll do is we'll have that opportunity to go out and do that sort of brushing. I mean, it's mostly in the area above Nelson and to Cottonwood Lake, because that's the area that's most used and in the springtime needs that done. As I get down into this, you'll see that there's further into the repairs and maintenance. Part of that is we have a mechanical brushing contract that we're looking for. Mechanical meaning it could be by hand or it could be by machine. We're going through that RFP. We went through an RFP last year and it wasn't successful. So we're changing the terms this year because it does get, anybody knows, any trail will grow it. And so it's a lot of maintenance to kind of maintain that brush back at a proper space for line of sight and all kinds of things. So it wasn't successful last year with RFP. So we're actually just working on it. Had a meeting yesterday on getting that out. So that will be, you know, part of all of that. And then same thing, part of the invasives is, there's a lot of different types of invasives on that rail trail that are just due to the traffic and biking and things like that is, you know, bikes and everything else tend to, you know, even shoes carry things for quite a ways. So it's a fair bit of work on that trail to do that. So the contracted assist group, it's just, that came out in a 5-year, I think that it's so, should say that that's, also our service for, we have garbage and we have maintenance around that area that is done particularly up, you know, above Nelson, and further along. And then part of that is the contract that we have with, the Apex ski area, so they groom they cross country, they groom it from the Apex area to the highway and back. And I will say that's probably one of the most successful things that we have done in that area. Cottonwood Lake parking lot is almost, you know, full all the time. It's full of the highway. We allow dogs on that section, so that's the real sort of bonus for a lot of people. They go up there and go skiing, so they can hop out, go ski, put their dog back in, and a lot of them then continue on in Apex, and we're, you know, they're doing that. So that has been a really successful program. I know for years we were trying to initiate this, and when we finally got it, you hear nothing but positiveness from the public on that aspect. So that's really the Great Northern Trail.
Okay, Lockwood?
Thank you through the chair. The bollard replacement, I have a huge problem with this is that we have, we've replaced a few and we're gonna continuously doing this. Can we look at something different? Because all we're trying to do is stop actual vehicles from going down the trail. That is there not an opportunity that there's just like a post instead of a bollard replacement, something that's not gonna get bent to the side because somebody's got an ATV that's 2 inches wider than what we're allowing? This just to me is going to be an ongoing problem, and we know how much you put something out there and there's some radicals out there that are just gonna destroy it every year.
Okay, Bolliards, comments?
Yeah, fair enough, good question, through the chair. So on the motorized section right now, we're not replacing boulders on there. We're waiting really right now through the management plan when that comes through. So that's in there from years past, but we do have a couple that we have to place on the non-motorized section. And we don't have any issues with people breaking or destroying. It's just that some of them are old and rusted out on the bottom and they're a little difficult to kind of get out and things like that. So it's just, but in terms of on the non-motorized section, we're not replacing anything on there at this time. Because like you said, they've just been damaged or pulled out or vandalized. And it was just an ongoing thing. So I agree that's not something we're doing.
Okay, good. On to Johnson, James Johnson.
Right.
Johnstone.
Yeah, James Johnson, you know, sort of a fairly low impact park in terms of, I mean, it's great, it's well used. It's amazing how many people are down there in the summertime when you go. A lot of people actually kayak or canoe over from the lakeside, and they'll go over there and have a picnic and things like that. So but again, it's fairly low maintenance. We do have a picnic table we have to kind of fix or replace, we're not sure. And then we do have a janitor, so there's a washroom there now. I think I have in there, it says new water. We're looking to sort of put in 2027 to replace that washroom. It's a really old style and it is needing a replacement, but we just thought we'd have that in 2027 when we finish off our other projects. So that's James Johnson.
Do you have an idea what we're looking at for cost for 2027? Just
I think I might have that in.
like a ballpark?
Yeah, it's gonna be like $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay. Thanks. Onward.
Sorry, and through the chair, just for that, we won't be able to bring a tank down there, which we would normally do. It'll maintain the culvert, so it's really the structure over top of what's there now. Right. McDonald's Landing, so. Again, this one is, you know, it's low maintenance right now in terms of, you know, we go there, there's no garbage cans, we don't have to wash them. But we do, go there fairly often to make sure we're picking up any garbage, and we have issues with mooring overnight, and we have issues with people leaving boats underneath and then never coming back, so there's always that. And I know everyone in Western Dock has issues with the times, so, that's, there's that, and so just the $25,000. So that was originally a fund that was put in there to look at water access to, for 5 and 6 Mile Beach. And we've carried that over. We're kind of doing that partially through the park strategy right now because it's parks and trails and water access. So if we need to further do anything on that, or potentially if we need to do further investigation with that part of the management plan, water access, then there is those funds available for that. But it's a carryover from years, past. Any questions?
Morrison, then Brent Newell.
So you just said 5 and 6 Mile Beach, so right now considerations for 5 and 6 Mile Beach are being lumped in with McDonald's Landing, and am I wrong? Like, I'm just trying to figure how many get where McDonald's Landing is, because if they're not access at 6 Mile off the lower 6 Mile road to the beach, so that McDonald's Landing.
Yeah, so McDonald's Landing is the wharf. It used to be old federal wharf, so it's the big wharf.
Okay,
That's down there. Yeah, there's a separate boat access.
Yeah.
Further down on Nickel, the washout road.
Okay, and Newell?
Yeah, just to clarify, Harry, so the operating kind of budget type of thing without an asset management plan in addition to that is $25,000 less than the 29, so like we'd be requisitioning 4,500
Correct.
or 5,000.
Yeah.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Pulpit.
Hey, so pulpit, so right now, one of the things that we're doing, we got the maximum meeting with them today. We're trying to find better solutions for parking. We know it's difficult there, and we've had some discussions with the neighbors, at times unhappy with the parking, the way that it is, so, part of it as well is there's a statutory right-of-way agreement with the neighbor originally that says that the trail has to be 5 meters from the property line. Again, the trail's been there for an awful long time. When we investigated, a tree came down and it kind of opened up a little bit of visual aspect, and it was requested that we move that to the 5 meters, so it's about 3 meters as it is, so we have to realign the trail. Which is a fair bit of work, to be honest, just to kind of, you know, realign that to fit within that extra 2 meters difference, because if it was a little bit over, we have a big tree, we could build some stairs around it, but because there's a tree there, can't really cut down the tree to build that, so we have to kind of go up a little bit and do a switch back. So that's part of that. We also are working on some signage for the public to understand how to park, where to park. The neighbor has currently been putting up signs himself. So we need to make sure that we're putting signs up that are appropriate to that, to the nature of that on our end. So that's really what Pulper Rock is.
Be clear. I could.
Yeah,
And this is just the entrance area.
The access, yeah.
not where you get in, but when you do that initial switchback.
Yeah, as soon as you go up the stairs.
Yeah.
And you go the first switchback.
Yeah.
Is where we have to realign that. So there's a tree, we have to go on this side of the tree, but we have to move it up onto the bench. There is a very large fir that fell last year. So it does complicate things a little bit because depending where you cut it, it's going right down. And we're gonna use that literally as an opportunity to use that as stabilizing the thing for a trail to go. So it'll work out, but it's just, again, there's a few complications with that, with where the trees sit at this time. But it's a small realignment, but it's, yeah, we're gonna need material and. That is all.
Lockwood? Thanks.
Thank you, and I apologize. I tried to do it on the last slide, but nothing would work. So I'm gonna leave my audio on. I just want to go back. Can we actually put it in where it's a carryover access to water funds? Can we put that in for 5 and 6 Mile Beach, actually in that line item?
You want the comments in the notes?
Please,
Yeah, through the chair, we can do that. Oh.
thank you.
Done.
So, I might just leave my stuff on. I
You
can't.
could, yeah, you could just yell chair, that's fine.
Thanks.
I respond to chair. Okay.
Call and wait for dinner.
So Rosebud, again, some of this goes back to what we talked about. So with Rosebud, of course, it's not like, a lot of the stuff with SRK and things like that are related to the dam. But we also have a huge piece of property that, we are now in charge of. I wish I could have had a video for you guys to see. It was, Facebook, that I'm not on Facebook, but my wife found it. And it is an amazing Facebook, video of the use of Rosebud Lake ice skating. So it was completely clear and there was a lot of people that were out there skating on the whole, lake as well as ice fishing. They're really nice fish. They call it. Yeah, but it was really great to just, again, like what an amazing thing for us to actually know that we've been, part of that. So it was fantastic. And, I know it Rosebud as well. I went there last year with Carrie Anderson, who's an ecosystem biologist. We had a couple of complaints because of the fact that we had to reduce the level of the spillway. Which back to the original, that was part of the dam safety, said you need to do this, so we did it. It reduced the level of the lake by about 18 inches. Which some people complained and thought that we're gonna ruin all the turtles and everything else, which was part of the reason we're forgetting this. We did a site visit and found that it actually seems to have created a wall like that. When I was over on the other side where the owner used to have a little camp and trailer and things like that is, we're finding that that's a very successful nesting site and a hatching site for the turtles. So, so there's work to do there as well, but most of the stuff, like I say, that we do have a community works funding grant that was from Area G, that was $200,000. So that will go into any upgrades as we move forward for that to reduce that idea of the.
Okay. Not this time.
I thought so.
Nope, not this time.
Good, okay.
Sarah, you gonna get on Facebook and find us that video? Your communication.
Oh.
Well,
Okay.
So Sunshine Bay. So Sunshine Bay, another, fantastic place that we've had, amazing success. What an amazing park and people constantly flow about it. So, we have an employee there, so they deal with the park, so they basically maintain that park. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to have, Scott on our staff because he lives in the air, cares about it, and it is kept immaculate. And, you don't find garbage, trails are done, stuff is mowed, fields are good. So it's great to have Scott, and I thank him for all his work there. One of the things that we do, have to, deal with a lot is trees. So it's one of those areas, a lot of forested area, there's a lot of old Lombardy trees, that, tend to fall, in different parts. And so we know that there's a bunch of work there to do this year for just public safety. Every 4 years, we actually have to trim, 4 to 6 years, we have to trim back the, weeping willows. Because they literally come down and cover the whole ground, so we cut them back up, so that won't be happening. So that's kind of Sunshine Bay in a nutshell.
Okay.
And there's a very successful farmer's market.
Sorry, yes, thank you for that, yeah. Great, new support from Director Graham, it's really successful. In fact, finding that there's so many people going out and the ferries are busy and everything else to get over there. So it's a very successful market that has started every Sunday throughout the summer, which does give us a little bit of revenue in there as well, so. Which Director Darrell, hopefully you saw that there was that now this year, as we said, really quick. So, so that's, Sunshine Road.
Okay. On the table.
Dagum. So, yeah, basically it's kind of as it says in there. And part of that, we have the janitorial dog control is something that, so it's $6,000. And this year that went into, as it came to the board, if anyone remembers last year, in the dog control bylaw and dog control, report, we are now part of the RDCK dog control. So that helps us a lot because we were always going out to contract and everything else, which kind of didn't make any sense when we actually have that internally. So we've kind of, joined on with RDCK dog. So that's essentially, yeah, I mean, there's anything else in that for table?
Yeah, maybe I'll just.
No.
Thanks, if I could through the chair. I can't quite remember what the 66,000 budget was.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Should I ignore
When
it?
we did the budget amendment, that's where the amendment came from.
Yeah.
So when in
Oh.
planner, if you were to look in different places in the regional district budget, you would see the budget as amended. In planner, it shows the budget, the 2025 budget pre that amendment, and it's stuck there. And so that's caught us a couple times trying to, but that's what it is. So that's pre the amendment that Craig was talking about.
So then my question would be ongoingly, without capital expenditures, would we say that between, let's say, around $40,000 to $50,000 would be the ongoing operating cost of Tag Beach without capital?
Without any capital, I think it's probably around 35, more likely. And to mention in there, so the repairs and maintenance, one of the things that we had, if anyone's been to Tagum, the parking lot, is very difficult. Sometimes there's big ruts, and, was that kind of waiting if we're gonna do, if a big project is gonna be done, and, what we realized last year, we talked to YRB, because we said, how much is it gonna cost for you guys to go in there and fix that parking lot for us, at least to get through the season? So we talked to them, and it was between $9,000 and $11,000 for them to do that. Again, the good and the bad is that we have to do that to, make it accessible for people to even kind of get in there. The other part is that, we can use some of that material when we move forward to the bigger project if we had to, right? If any material gets laid down. But it's just that kind of like trying to weigh that, for the public, because it does get, and if it rains, there's just this huge puddle, and so it's not really sustainable to have it the way that it is. So knowing that the project may take a little bit longer, we're gonna have to do some repairs to that road. So that's what's about 35.
Go ahead.
Speaking of terrible entrances to wonderful places, Cottonwood is.
Well,
So I thought, is it apropos, like the entrances to a couple of our parks
yeah,
are really brutal?
Chair, thank you for saying that, because it's something I forgot to mention about Gondola. Before March 31st, that entrance and the roadway will be fixed by MOTI. We've had conversations with them. We were hoping to do it last year. Their fiscal ending is March 31st. They have found money to be able to do that for us. So thank you. Yeah, that will be coming up.
Yeah,
And not at our
that's
cost.
awesome.
So.
Great, amazing.
And just for, if you're talking, like, you're having your meetings with Mott and that, I know that some directors do, just know that the Nelson office is an incredible partner to regional parks here, including the trail.
Here or whatever, yeah. Great.
Okay, Morning Mountain.
So Morning Mountain, we did a lot of work last year. With invasives and, sort of doing some work in the base area. And it was quite successful. I think it looks fantastic. It's getting there. The rink was up just, the other day, so that was, it was amazing to see so many people out on the rink up at Morning Mountain. And unfortunately, just after they flooded it, probably at about, 9:30 at night or 10 at night, about an hour later, I guess someone decided to go up there and skate on it. So of course, that made it a mess. The next day they went and they were fixing it. So I was up there actually meeting with them and it was being fixed at the time. And there were 5 people that were showing up to come on the rink just in the middle of the day. So I just wanna say that's been great and successful. When it's cold enough. But it has been, like, again, Morning Mountain doesn't get any sun in the wintertime. And it's about, about a degree or 2 degrees colder up there than it would be here. So that is one of the reasons that is somewhat successful up there, during that period. So of course, we have the janitorial, we have that, the washroom getting pumped this year. We have a bunch of tree work and that, so that kind of fits in all of that. It's really this year. And I agreed that we would, supply new line next year. As there were some, patched up holes in this one, and I know how that goes when, in my backyard during springtime, you have a hole in your line, but it's not worked very well, so that's, Morning Mountain. Questions?
Okay,
It's down to the part here. Which I can't read.
No, it's okay.
You got
Bill,
it,
this
Bill?
is mine,
Okay.
mine now. You can stop.
Okay.
So for those that have come into the room, know that we're still in Nelson Salmo EFG Regional Park meeting. We are not in the Nelson Commission. I'm just wondering, do we have to let Kate?
no, yeah, I can let Kay know.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fair. Okay, so these are,
Chair,
yeah,
we know when the next meeting will begin?
it's supposed to be at 10:30. We'll probably
Yes.
run a little late. I was just gonna text Kate.
Do you want me to leave?
Huh?
Do you want me to leave?
You can just sit on the side, it's fine.
Oh, you're,
No, you're for fine, it's a public meeting,
okay, yeah.
by all means.
Should I say 11 for Pete?
I was gonna say, yeah, she should be here by 10:45.
Yeah, because we need a break.
We need a break, but
Sorry.
I don't wanna end up having to wait for Kate, because she's at 11, or she's start.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis.
Both of, yeah, we're just both. So, sorry, Dr. Neal, did you want to break now or do you want to break?
No, I just wanted to be realistic about the start time.
Yeah,
So,
Okay.
so through the chair, we started this last year, if you remember, at the special meeting for Nelson Rec. So I'm refining this kind of a sheet to try and lump operations differently than capital. We're still refining the pieces that show up in here. I just want to explain, I'll just wait till Trish, I think this is bigger than what's in your package, Tom, so hopefully you can see it. So in this piece, this is where, so what we're trying to show, so the top part of this is the requisition grants in lieu. So those are grants in lieu are like taxation, so that's essentially the taxation portion of the presentation. The next piece is any revenue that there is for the park. And what we're trying to get to here are those strict operational expenses. This is the part that, you know, over time still probably needs to be refined. Craig, Tricia and I have spent particular amount of time working on this. Carrie has been a big help for me in doing this in the parks piece. But what we're trying to say is that there's this funding that is core to parks. Like it just needs to run consistently. It should have a fairly regular, it should really track inflation and those kinds of things. And then there's this piece that changes, whether it be every 5 years, we need to I'm looking at Carrie's, but we need to do the parking, we need to do the grading at Dagenham Beach. So we're trying to find these pieces to try and illustrate, to commission those fluctuations. Those fluctuations, I think, we can manage, you can start, if we can identify those fluctuations, you can manage how you will fund that over time with regular contributions, say into reserve when those amounts are low, and then draw from reserve when those amounts are higher. So I think there's a pattern in there. I haven't, just want to be clear, I haven't discovered it yet, what that sweet spot is. But in particular, in these two, there's this scenario. This is based upon our present 5-year budget. So our present 5-year budget, that you would have, other than the changes that we've made to requisition in 2026, that you would have seen that for. So I just, what I'm seeing in this, what it shows is that in that actual piece is that our operational expenses between 2021 and 2025 went from about 394 to 529. And then your 2024-2025 budget, you can see where those were budgeted at 800 and 843. If you go along that line, and I'll try and do this, Cheryl and Diana, so you can see. So these lines here are the budgets. You can see how you can see that Carrie and the parks team are starting to refine those budgets in 2026, going to 2030. We still don't have these pieces pulled out completely, like possibly things like grading of a lot that are on intermittent basis. We still haven't made those firm definitions yet. But we're trying, because I think that's really important going forward. You will also see along here the grants to external. So to remind everybody what is included in those amounts are grants to Nelson Cycling Club, which are right now in this budget at $20,000. Grants to the city of Nelson and the village of Salmo. In 2025, we increased those grants, and this budget contains an inflationary increase based upon the amount from 2025. And then there is the Kokanee Nature Center, and sorry, Hans, I'm forgetting the, I want to say McMurray, but I think that's wrong. The park in Wyman.
Oh, yeah, George Murray.
George Murray, thank you. And the contribution to the Weimar Community Association for that, and also for their work around the Great Northern Trail there. So all of those are flat. So the only two grants in this budget, based upon conversations, are the inflationary increases to the municipality. So that's showing up here.
What number is that?
Oh, sorry, so it's the part that says grants to external. So on the, whoops.
But what's the number?
So-
437 for 2026.
437, 171.
which is less than through the chair, less than last year.
Sorry, it's less than last year because there was an anomaly.
Okay, fair enough.
So last year, this is one of those things that happened at year end that surprised you. We had, a track that Nelson Cycling Club, they had when we did the transfer of money from, the Old Morning Mountain Reserve, we didn't, at the point where we did budget, that money hadn't been paid out to Nelson Cycling. It did get paid out, the auditor moved it back to 2025, just because of an error in the accounting system, moved it back to 2025. But it happened in a way that didn't allow us to change the budget. So it's actually more, because you would actually have to reduce that by about $21,000, because that was in there last year. It's not in there this year. So just a note, so it's not it's technically of those grants, it's an increase.
Okay.
All right. So that's what that shows. Down on the bottom, you can see what we put in these, this is that piece that I think that we need to find out this regular, how we fund these things. So it's borrowing. So that's the Cottonwood Lake purchase. So that was a capital purchase. Our contributions to reserves, which is our money going in, our capital expenditures in the parks and any asset renewal pieces, those have all been moved down into this area. So what you can start to see, if we look at the budget, it's easier. You can see what the historical spend is, and the big one being that was 2022, where we had, that was the majority of the Cottonwood Lake project, that 557 in 2022. The other thing to note is how that is funded. So you can see in the actual part that whether it has been the borrowing, the contribution to reserves, or the major capital projects, that's either been funded through reserve or through previous year's surplus. Like it's almost never those amounts are less. So the requisition hasn't been paying for those things directly, although it pays for it through the surpluses carried forward. So into the budget portion, so this column is 2024, moving to 2030 over here. If you can see my cursor on the screen, you can see the amounts that are budgeted. So this year, the 406, it's our projected big spend, and lots of that has to do with Cottonwood Lake and the $50,000. Sorry, not Cottonwood Lake, Tagum Beach, a little bit of Cottonwood Lake, and then Rosebud Lake. So those are those capital projects that we went through at the beginning. And then it drops. And so what we're trying to show here is a little bit is the dance with the second line. So the second line is that contribution to reserve. So you can see in 2024, we contribute 110. 2025, we contributed 110. This year, we're projecting 113. Next year, when we go to in the budget, we're saying we're not going to budget for the contribution to reserve because this top part, so the red right directly above it, cannot fund that entire piece. So that means that there's $147,000 next year that is actually funding the borrowing, and the capital loans, unless we choose to draw from reserve. So that's for the future, but we're just trying for the first time, trying to show this dance. What it is that we're trying to get to is that if you have a core amount of funding that covers borrowing and these one-offs, you can actually manage that funding and avoid fluctuations in your budget. So we still have to kind of work through this a little bit, but it's the beginnings. The very bottom row that's still above in the blue, I'm just going to highlight it on the screen. That's where surplus is funding operations. So this line is important because when you fund operations from surplus, that means that the next year, if your operations fully utilized, that might be an automatic taxation jump. So that's what that's illustrating there.
Which, I'm sorry, I lost.
Right, sorry, I know.
I can follow your cursor there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 31, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha.
And sometimes if it's a small amount, that's not necessarily a problem.
Could I just check? So are you saying that through this chart that 124,437 last year in 2025, what does that number mean?
That means that when we did that budget, the operating was being funded $124,000 from surplus.
In other words, the requisition was reduced by that amount
Correct.
because we used, was that the operating surplus from
That would be
2024?
that was the operating surplus, yes.
Yep.
So the operating surplus was a lot bigger. It was 285,000, but about 124 of that was for operations. That doesn't really impact because we're moving these things. We're trying to get control of these one-off expenditures, like whether that be capital or something else. I don't mean get control, but just get it accounted for differently. I think this has been a complaint about these budgets because they combine everything in them. And trying to identify that, we can start identifying a strategic funding plan for it. So what to note down below is that your current reserves sit at $559,000. To note, $67,000 of that has been dedicated to Rosebud Lake. That's the very top one. So that was specific reserves for parks in Area G. And when we did that acquisition, we said that was going to be targeted to Rosebud Lake. So you can see that amount at this point in time, we haven't touched it.
So is the 50,000 in that 67, or is there actually 113,000 or whatever?
The 50,000 was in surplus for carryover.
Right.
So we've accounted for that in that budget so that we've kept it.
So there's still a reserve balance specifically for Rosebud Lake of
Yes,
$67,000. What you got?
yes. To understand though, that was only collected from Area G. Okay, so that's a historic amount.
Cheryl,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for all of this. This is really super interesting. My question is, through the chair to Joe. When I look at the financial approved plan last year, it shows a total reserve for the service of $422,820. But this plan for 2025, and this plan is showing 446. So it seems like there's an extra 20,000 in reserves from somewhere.
So these two pieces, so in 2025, I that way. But you can see that 348,882. So at the beginning of 2025, that was the amount. At the beginning of 2025, sorry, maybe a better way of saying it is at the end of 2024. And then the 38,269, there's actually two reserves for the service. The 38,269 is the still is the growing community funds that are allocated to this service that we haven't used yet.
Thank you.
So when you look at that next year, that 340 to 453, that includes the $110,000 contribution and interest. Well, the actually 110 is actually 100, and the 10 represents the interest that's expected to come in. So, what for this part here, we could, and this is something that I just want direction from the commission on. We can do this work. It's on the 5-year. Remember, this won't impact 2026, but we could start trying to balance like where you see in 2027. So this is 2027 right here. It's saying of those expenses above, $147,000 right now is funded from requisition. So we could start to plan and take that as a contribution from reserve there. Right? To fund that to zero. And we could match this out going over time and try to illustrate to you how that could work. And then you'd have this dedicated, you'd have this plan in place, and that might help you with some decision making. I don't know if it's clear in this head. Not sure if I've explained it well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I always have a problem with using reserves to fund operations. And I understand that it will bring it down over time, but in fact, in the end, it will result in an increase in taxes in order to match the amount that we're funded out of reserve. And it seems to me personally, as you know, Weimer put in the money for Rosebud Lake because we knew that, that was our share to the total capital as well. And the fact that we wanted to make sure that dam, for example, would be approved and right up to the date and the necessary costs would be taken care of. I would rather have the reserve, we look at it and make a plan for using the reserve for major projects because we have a whole pile of major projects to do. And I would far rather personally use the reserve so they're gone and tax at the rate which we need to. That's my own personal preference because that's the amount, it'll stay steady, it'll go up at the rate of inflation perhaps, but we don't need to worry about, well, the taxes are reduced by the amount of reserves now, but guess what, here we are, here we are a little bit later and we have to increase taxes beyond the amount of inflation because of the fact we used up our reserve.
Yeah, you want to match the capital plan to the reserve.
Pardon?
You want to match the capital plan over 10 years to what we expect the reserve.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I'd like to look at a good decent capital plan that has all those, that just eliminates the reserves. And in fact, we can say, when people say, well, what's all this money doing in the bank? Well, this money is to put new washrooms into Johnson or whatever, or yes.
Joe?
And even if we have a master capital plan, I would like that because yeah.
And through the chair, to be clear, sorry, and you're absolutely right. I'm not advocating for that. I'm advocating for that we would start pulling from reserves to match the capital expenditures in that middle band.
Oh, got it. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's why I said it's clear in this end. I'm not sure if I'm explaining.
Okay. Yeah, so.
Sure.
Yeah, just a second, Lockwood, we're gonna Newell.
So Joe, in that scenario of 2027, capital expenditure borrowing column that you referred to and talked about that 147, but wouldn't that be a double dip because we're not contributing anything to reserves that year?
through the chair, it actually, so here's the thing. So when you draw from reserves, you wouldn't budget for that, contribution to reserve.
Wouldn't do both.
You wouldn't
Put in
do
and
both.
take out.
Or else then you really got some weird account.
Gotcha, okay.
So, in this case, by showing that, if you, in 2027, there is no contribution into reserve. So the net difference is 147,713 that we would draw from reserve. That would make that line zero. In those years where you don't have those things, you would make contributions to reserve. So we can actually go through this and almost always balance this out to zero. And as you move along, so for example, in 2031, you will have no borrowing costs anymore. Right? So those things that will actually drop out of the whole system. All I'm suggesting is that the system that we see working really well is in Castlegar. We know what funding we have to cover borrowing costs, to cover capital projects, or to capital, or even large planning projects. And we know what we are managing that in. So in Castlegar this year, we know that funding limit is 900,000. And we work really hard to figure out how to do that. And then next year, that funding limit's gonna go up to $1 million. I'm not suggesting that for this service, not the same size, but that is the way that we can do that. And I think you can then you can start focusing on, hey, that makes it clear to staff. That's that funding. This is the funding that we've got to pull from. If we're planning that big project, just like we talked about the project for Tagum, we know that maybe needs to come from grants, maybe it needs to be long-term borrowing. But whatever, we've got to somehow fit it into this funding envelope. And so I think that will make it clear. And I could work on something for staff to present to you in March. But just know that piece for the future doesn't necessarily have to be done now. But that's what I'm trying to illustrate in this piece.
Okay, I see Graham and then Lockwood. Graham, no hand. Lockwood, take your
Thank
spot.
you. Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for that, Joe. You had me totally cleared and then you muddled my brain. So I'm gonna go back to that 147,000. As Director Newell had said, then with the zero, that makes it that you're not double dipping. So I understood that. But then when you go to the next line, we're putting in 113,000 and then we're still using 140,000. Then you go to the next line and it's zero and 162,000. So I guess that's where my confusion is why all of a sudden in what year is that, 2028, that we're putting in 113,000 and still using the requisition funding capital.
So through the chair, because I wasn't trying to complete that plan perfectly in this case. So what I was doing is I was looking at the years that we had really big capital projects. That year, it's a really small capital project. But if the commission said, Joe, find a nice balance through this, then that would look different. But it's a good catch. That was done. It was done purposefully because if you look there, the third line. Sorry, I'll highlight it. The third line that. Hold on. Sarah, you gotta teach the next person how to use this stuff better than me. This 28,792 was such a small amount in 2028.
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. So the right now, the 2026, so the big difference between the two scenarios, The next thing here should be a budget. I'm gonna just scroll down to the bottom. So here are those, this area right here are the grants that are currently included in the budget. This is what makes up those amounts in the grant line. So last year, we bumped the city of Nelson Lakeside up from about 350 to 400, 592, and the village of Salmo to 4579. This financial plan, which is what's currently on the books, just shows those two lines increasing by 2.3. That's just what it is. That's the way our CPI calculator in the budgeted software works. So that's what's in there right now. I'm gonna try and just really close this thing up a little bit. I'm gonna skip down to the scenario on that budget. There's been talk about, you've had requests from the city of Nelson to increase the grant. But there's been no consensus on that. And maybe maybe I shouldn't even have done this, but I'm gonna take a shot. In 2019, when we looked at what we provided for a grant and what the net expenditures for the parks that we've agreed to are regional parks, the funding was at about 86.5%. The village of Caddo, and some of these numbers were numbers discussed right at this table. In 2019, it was 25. So for me, that's the only direction that I've ever had from commission is that piece right there. If you were to maintain that level of funding, that would change the city of Nelson in 2026 to 446,379 and the village of Salmo to 5,256. That's what it would do. How that gets funded this year is that gets funded from that accumulated operating surplus. So it does not impact the budget this year. It doesn't impact requisition. It actually probably doesn't really impact requisition probably until about 2028 if we keep that accumulated operating surplus and we just bring that forward as surplus into 2027. So then you would start to see that impact. That's an idea on the table. But right now the budget is the other one.
Okay, Lockwood?
Thank you. I'm just going to make two clarifications. First of all, I'm really feeling like maybe the commission doesn't want us in there. Now it says Village of Castle instead of Village of Salmo. And then we were also left off the report. I'm only making a joke, but just so we can correct those things when it comes back to the next commission meeting for the minutes. And the second thing is when Director Cunningham had said Weimar contributed, I believe it was all of Area G, not just Weimar. So as this is being recorded and people are listening, I just want everyone to know that it was Area G, not just Weimar. Thank you.
So the one piece on direction here, I'm hearing it's not necessarily an impact if we try and keep that balance, but Stuart had raised the possibility that the request for the city of Nelson could be serviced through a loan, which could be picked up in this carrying cost for the capital request that Nelson was making.
Sorry, and through the chair, at this point,
That's not what's in here, but if we were to give direction to incorporate those costs, it could be structured and smoothed out with a loan as opposed to.
Yeah, and just through the chair, we need to remember the city made two requests.
Yeah.
One was for an increase to operational funding, and one was funding for contributing capital to the vote house. So I'm not dealing with the capital here. I'm only, this suggestion is only dealing with the operating.
Newell, is that your hand?
Sorry, no, I don't think we've asked anything yet, so.
Okay, well, I would ask that we include this increase to keep with our contributions we were doing in 2019. No other support for that. And I would just remind people, like, this letter was sent by the city of Nelson with a very clear understanding from council that if we're not able to reach parity with these contributions to these regional parks, there's a very real possibility that the city of Nelson is contemplating and would pull out of this service. And I don't mean to make it that harsh, but it is my understanding that's the intent.
So, and just through the chairs legislatively, that would be very difficult to do. The province would not look upon that as, would not look strongly upon that based upon previous conversations we've had around previous other regional park services.
I clarify something?
Go ahead,
Chair.
Yep.
When does the motion that you put that hasn't been seconded fall off the floor?
Sure, it's off the floor now. Go ahead.
Well, obviously, many of us have been pondering this. 10 years ago, I would have said pondering. Come a long way. I think that what would benefit me is a workshop with the city, this commission, to clarify this number of 86.5%, which is now compounded by a capital request, which we didn't, I naively, it's 100% my responsibility that when we agreed to this, I kind of just said, well, okay, you know, maybe it's fair, but I think we've now been into it for 5 or 6 full years. We have this new request that we didn't contemplate, which is capital expenditure. So we never really thought about new lawn mowers and that kind of thing when we first did this. And I've got a little more thoughts about the regional parks and whether it is. So I'd like to propose, I'm not going to support the motion, obviously, I do support the cost of living increase that we talked about. So certainly I did support that cost of living increase that was brought forward as a request last year, I guess. And then set up a workshop to work out the details of a contribution. I'm not comfortable with that. So I'll leave it at that for now. And
okay, so you're proposing a workshop? Lockwood, are you seconding that or you question? I'll second it for discussion. Go ahead, Lockwood.
Thank you. I guess I'm wondering, when we had these discussions for years on end, is that, and we discussed that they were going to be regional in nature. I don't believe that we ever came up with a definition of what regional in nature was going to be. although, the city of Nelson is asking about the boathouse in one of their, letters. The village of Salmo is having to replace just their concession, which is gonna be a $500,000. When is this commission going to decide on what's regional and what's municipal? Are
That's
we
what-
going?
That's what's being proposed. That's what Newell's proposed, is doing a workshop with the city and this commission on this question of what's regional, what does a contribution look like in terms of a framework for an agreement? Is that correct? Do I have that? Yeah.
I would no disrespect if I may to Salmo, because Salmo would be part of the workshop.
Yes.
I was
Salmo would
considering
be-
it
Salmo would-
included and yours there. So it was no disrespect intended to Salmo. It was like they would be included in
The partners
that
and their
conversation.
councils, the partners and their councils.
Okay, thank you. Cause I was gonna say, Salmo again was left out of that conversation.
It's the gas.
Included by its nature, yeah, I hear it.
Okay,
So-
I want to make sure that we're not, changing the contribution. We're still going forward with that. Other than the
Chair.
workshop is
Yeah.
just about the regional portion.
Yeah, so through the chair, currently, the city of Nelson, last year was around 390, this year would be about 592. That is in the budget. Village of Salmo, sorry, I think it was 4,200. And note that I did get Village of Salmo correct here. And since I copied it to down below, I have no idea how that changed the Caslow, but anyways, it did. So, here, it would be 4,579. Also no. Also no. Just like last year, where we carried over the accumulated operating surplus, had discussions later in the year, and then allocated it. You will still have, currently in the budget, is 79,760 of accumulated operating surplus. So if after that workshop, you come to a different conclusion, you could still amend the budget and change the contribution.
So we have a proposal on the table to conduct a workshop that includes the municipal partners councils, specifically around a framework that deals with some of these difference of perspectives on how to do a contribution to these parks. Clarified.
I did not say councils, but this commission was my intention.
I think we need to, I think we need to include a broader scope than just, otherwise we're just gonna be doing a back and forth and a back and forth. And if we're including Nelson, I think we need to include Salmo. So I hear you on your intent. Would you consider it friendly with this conversation to include the councils?
No, it doesn't, but
Well, I said we.
This show will be organized on it. So, yeah, sure.
Okay, friendly. Staff, any concerns about that? Fish?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Sure.
Lockwood, comments?
My only comment would be is that we actually have staff there too. I realize, like, all of my council probably will not show up, but there will be hopefully a few of us. But I do believe that our municipal staff should be there also to be able to have this conversation along with RDCK staff.
Friendly?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought staff would be there. I thought
I think we're all clear.
CAOs or CFOs and
Yeah.
the commission would sit down and start talking about what are the parameters that we're looking at. There's so many different factors that I did not consider at the time that I've learned now through 6 years of doing this that I could not have known in 2018, 2017 as we began the discussion around this thing. So I don't think we need the councils, so I think we need their representatives here. I am me. I don't have a council, so I would more think it's the commission with appropriate staff. And we start saying like, yeah, we just look at it again.
Okay,
Contribution agreement,
I think like Salmo would probably won't see all of Nelson anyway, but I think the invitation should
they
be
can
out there.
sit in,
Yeah, have freedom and
pass you notes.
not pass me notes, but you know, it's not gonna be, we're not gonna be voting. Janice?
Just if I may, so just to go back and reflect back on the past, 6 years. This is philosophizing as opposed to making a decision, but, you know, I'm disappointed that, the first motion wasn't seconded and carried, it seems like it has no, tax impact from what I've seen in having sat now through the meeting, but my understanding always had been that the agreement was around, operating costs. And, capital, like capital is anywhere, is something that, usually isn't something that has to happen every year or so. When I hear a reflection of, oh, buying the lawnmowers, this capital project in particular at Lakeside Park is the boathouse that is, half it is used by the RDCK for storage of equipment for, summer programs, and it is part of the highly utilized things, and it's not that project, which is a separate ask. I mean, that we've already heard, it's a separate ask. You know, pertains to trying to do setting up an operating budget for the organization, because repairs there would be definitely one-off with the hopes that you know, it serves us for another, gosh, that building was built, I want to say 1971. Oh,
I was only 3.
I'm sorry. Guys, I'm a little bit older than you are, 71. You know, and it's really had no, you know, unfortunately, there are many buildings, not just within the city of Nelson, but around, you know, like there's issues with walls and whatever in the regional district, that we could, put a little spit and polish on this building and really make it a bit more usable for another, 10 or so years. And so I always hate when operating and capital get conflated together, so just need to say that. So anyways, it looks like you're gonna move on whatever scenario number one is. I just need to say that. And you know what, I understand full well, if I was the sort of lone wolf that you get into the room and there's 7 counselors or 6 counselors and the mayor, and then there's just a Cheryl and there's just a Tom, just an H and an I, then it does feel overwhelming. And you know, the fact that that sort of big brother imperialistic feeling that seems to flow around a lot these days, one wants to be cautious of that, because if you're gonna have a workshop, you need to make sure that you feel that there's full participation and that the voices are somewhat heard.
On privilege.
Yeah.
My apologies for using a lawnmower as an example. I was trying to articulate that I felt that the funding included capital, like your capital, and it might have been a poor example, so no disrespect on that side. It was more the point I was trying to make, so thanks.
Okay, conscious of time, we have a motion on the table to do a workshop that includes municipal partners and staff, and not trying to overbear anyone's opinion, sensitive to that, of course. Can we have a vote on it, or do we need more comment?
Did it with the time mentioned?
I think we should have it before the March board meeting.
Well, I certainly think so. I thought perhaps that it was good, perhaps put the time in the motion. That as well.
I didn't think we needed it that quickly because of the buffer that we had used before. So I thought we could allow transition and so I didn't see it as urgent as that.
Well,
on this.
So I think if we, given that there's no impact on taxation, can stick with the previous motion for this budgetary cycle, then I don't think we have the same timeline. But if we're still contemplating that we're not going to be keeping up with the ratio that was historically there, then I think we need to have it before March board meeting in case we come out with principles that identify we should be making increased contributions.
But I thought that's what Joe said. You can do an allocation later in the year if we feel that we want to go back to the 86.5%.
Okay.
I thought that was what Joe said.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Yeah, through the chair, you have the funding. Through the accumulated surplus to make an amendment to the budget, just as you did last year.
Okay.
After the fact, raise our contribution to the city of Nelson.
Correct.
Okay with that? Yeah. Others won't be, but I'm okay with it. Then I'm gonna call a vote. So all those in favor of a workshop? I see a majority. Oh, yeah. Okay. There's no timeline, but we want it soon after budgets, I'm assuming. Okay, great. Thank you. Long and windy path. But, you know, seeking clarity is that way anyway, so that's fine. That takes us to our correspondence letters. We've seen these. We'll be discussing them further. Unless anyone wants to raise anything for action today, I want to take us to public time so we can have a break. Is there anyone from the public on the parks piece on our budget who wants to speak to anything? Go ahead. Just your name and your area, and you can just come up.
I have one question.
Oh,
Just one question. So now, have you just approved the requisition to be with, through all this, the 1.186962? Or is it the requisition of 1410485 that it was at last Friday's board meeting?
It's the 1186.
Thank you.
That's it.
Or 96, sorry.
86. Yeah, just come up and name and area.
My name is Garth Patterson. I live in the city of Nelson. I'm a director on the Nelson Cycling Club board. In the interest of time, I'll keep my comments very short. First of all, I would say for a large part of my career, I was in more positions around the table. So this is, I can understand the complexities of the decisions you're making, and I've gotten a great deal of, I guess, better understanding of what you're dealing with today here too. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the funding that you're proposing for the cycling club going forward with 20,000 a year. I thank you very much for that. You're aware of what we do from Deb's presentation last meeting to the board, and we do appreciate our relationship with the RDCK and the staff, and we have a very good model over at Morning Mountain with staff there. As you know, we did request additional funding. We will struggle moving forward to find that. And again, I would request, as you're moving forward to finalizing budgets, either at a staff level or commission level, that if you are able to identify additional available funds, we would certainly appreciate that. I won't get into further details. We'll certainly be prepared to appear again March 25th if that's useful, or work with staff in the interim to identify possible grants. If you're also able to show in your projections moving forward, 27 beyond, an intent to increase funding in your scenarios, we'd certainly appreciate that consideration also. I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, our next meeting is scheduled for the 25th of March here in the boardroom. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So February 10th.
That is for your next commission.
The next one.
The next one. Okay, adjournment? Moved and seconded, passed. Okay, let's take a